If you have type 2 diabetes, you may be wondering, can I lower my blood sugar naturally? Well, I'm happy to tell you the answer is yes. Today I'm sharing with you my top 5 tips to lower your blood sugar naturally, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, Erin here with Healthy Mom, Happy Family. As a registered dietitian and diabetes educator, the question I get asked all the time is, can I lower my blood sugar naturally? And yes, you can. And that's what I'm sharing with you today, are my top 5 tips to lower your blood sugar naturally. But before we get started, let's first talk about what raises blood sugar in the first place. Now, when you eat food, food is broken down into its simplest form of energy, which is glucose, or sugar. Now, the sugar enters the bloodstream, and insulin is like a car. It comes and it picks up the sugar to drive it into our cells, which are essentially like the garage. They're going to store that sugar for future energy. Now, what happens in a perfect world is the car, the insulin, picks up the sugar, drives it to the garage, enters the garage easily, the cell, and stores the energy. But what happens if you have diabetes or you have insulin resistance? Well, that car still picks up the passenger, the glucose, and it brings it to the garage. But when it gets there, the garage door is closed. This is what we call insulin resistance. That cell, the garage, has closed its door and it won't let the insulin bring the sugar into the cell. Now what happens is that the insulin and the sugar are pushed back into your bloodstream and they slowly start to rise. Over time, that slight increase in blood sugar is what we call insulin resistance or prediabetes. And eventually, as blood sugar gets higher, it becomes known as type 2 diabetes. But the good news is there are ways that we can make our cells, the garage, more receptive to insulin and can open back up to allow that blood sugar to flow back in. And that's what I'm sharing with you today, are what are those 5 natural ways that you can make your cells more receptive to insulin to get that sugar out of the bloodstream and back into the cells where it can be stored for future energy. Are you ready? Let's start with step number 1. Step number 1 is pay attention to the carbohydrates that you eat. The number 1 thing that has the biggest impact on your blood sugar levels is your diet. And the nutrient that affects blood sugar the most are carbohydrates. They get converted into glucose or sugar the easiest. And the type of carbohydrate you choose matters because not all carbohydrates are created equal. Some carbohydrates like whole grains and vegetables and fruits are bound with fiber, so they're digested more slowly and they have a more steady release of sugar into the bloodstream. But simple carbohydrates, added sugars like candies, sweetened beverages, sugary cereals, these are the things that digest rapidly and they lead to unhealthy spikes in our blood sugar levels. And with it causes our insulin levels to spike. The more our insulin levels spike and the more our cells are exposed to insulin, the more they become resistant to insulin over time. And that just means our blood sugar levels continue to rise. So what can you do? You want to cut down on added sugars in the diet. The goal is to have less than 10% of your daily calories coming from added sugar. Now what that means is about 6 to 8 teaspoons a day of added sugar in the diet. Most of us, we take in about 22 teaspoons of added sugar, so we're getting way too much. Now the way to tell the difference is to look at the food label when you're choosing your carbohydrates. You'll see under total carbohydrate, you'll see grams of total sugar, and now, thanks to the new food labels, you'll see the grams of added sugars. Added sugars are the ones we want to avoid. So the closer that number is to 0, the better it is for you. Now, if you don't see that on the label or you're still not sure, look at the ingredient list. The ingredient list really gives you a window into the food and what's inside. The first ingredient is what makes up the majority of the food. So you want to avoid added sugars in the first 3 to 5 ingredients. And you can identify them because you'll see words like sugar, syrup, molasses, cane juice, or words that end in OSE, like fructose, glucose, maltose. Those are signs of added sugars. So you want to see them way down on the ingredient list and make sure that if they're in the first 3 to 5 ingredients, it's a food you skip or you eat in a limited amount. Now, step number 2 is limit the amount of carbohydrates you eat per meal. So not only do we want to watch what type of carbohydrates we're eating, but the amount that you eat at one meal matters too. Because if you eat a large amount of carbohydrate at one time, what do you think happens? It digests and it spikes your blood sugar right after that meal. So spacing your carbohydrates out throughout the day is better for your blood sugar, and it's also better for your energy levels too. So what you want to think about are how many grams of carbohydrate are appropriate for you at every meal. And this is going to depend on a lot of factors. Your age, your activity level, your body size, your glucose goals, if you take medication or not. So I can't tell you the right amount for you. It's going to depend, and you want to work with your medical care team and your diabetes team to know the exact number of carbohydrates for meals and snacks that's right for you. But I can tell you on average, most people aim for about 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per meal and about 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate per snack. But remember, it's not just about the volume. Try to choose those slow digested carbohydrates, things that contain a lot of fiber, like whole grains, beans, lentils, whole vegetables, whole fruits, and limit those added sugars. Step number 3 is to get more physically active. Remember when I told you that insulin's like the car that drives sugar to the garage, the cell, but when that garage door's closed, the insulin and the sugar can't get in? Well, you know the one thing that opens that garage door back up? You guessed it, it's physical activity, exercise. The more you move, the less your body resists that insulin and it opens those cells back up. Not to mention when you move, your body is using that simple sugar as immediate source of energy. So let me tell you a little secret. Not only does exercise help to naturally lower your blood sugar, but if you make sure to exercise after a meal, it's one of the best ways to lower your post-meal blood glucose levels because you're getting up, you're moving, and you're using the carbs you just ate for immediate energy. Now, the one thing I want you to remember is never start or change an exercise routine until you talk to your medical care team and your physician first. You want to do what's safe and what's right for you. So don't jump into exercise until you get clearance. But once you do, aiming for 30 to 60 minutes of moderate activity a day can be a great way to help naturally lower your blood sugar. Step number 4 is to make sure you get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Now you might be thinking, isn't the worst thing I can do for blood sugar to just lay down and rest? But you would be really wrong, because when we don't get a restful night's sleep, a lot of things happen and change in our body, and that changes our hormones. What starts to happen when you're sleep deprived and get less than 7 hours of sleep per night is your appetite hormones, your digestive hormones shift. We get an increase in the appetite increasing hormone ghrelin, and we get a suppression in the satiety hormone leptin. So what does that mean? Well, it means when you don't sleep enough, you're actually hungrier, and after you eat, you feel less satisfied. Not to mention your body craves more simple energy, which, you guessed it, is sugars. So you're craving more simple sugar, you're hungrier, you feel less satisfied, and that's a recipe for eating many carbs, more carbs, simple carbs that raise blood sugar. So that's one reason we need more sleep. The other reason is that when you don't get enough sleep, your body becomes more resistant to insulin. And on top of that, your body produces more stress hormones like cortisol, and that raises blood sugar levels further. Plus, you're probably tired and you're not going to want to move your body as much. So make sure you make sleep a priority if you want to naturally lower blood sugar, and aim for 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep each and every night. Number 5 is get your stress levels under control. Just like with sleep, not everything that impacts blood sugar is related to diet. When your stress levels are elevated, your stress hormones go up. And guess what? They raise your blood sugar too. So we have to get a handle on stress and control it before it controls you. And one of the best ways to do this is with breathing exercises. Deep breathing, what we call belly breathing, is a slow, controlled breath in and out, deep into the belly, that automatically helps you feel more relaxed and brings down heart rate as well as stress hormones. Now I show you exactly how to belly breathe in my video, the #1 tip for lowering belly fat and stress. I linked to it below, so check it out. Now, to lower stress further, think about your diet. There's certain nutrients in your diet that lower stress hormones, specifically vitamin C and omega-3 fatty acids. Eating more of these nutrients can help lower stress hormones and bring them back to normal. So I think if you want to learn more about those foods, you're going to love my video, The Best Foods for Lowering Stress. I linked to it below, so check it out. So there you have it, the top 5 ways to lower your blood sugar naturally. Whether you're trying to manage type 2 diabetes, prevent insulin resistance, or prevent prediabetes, these tips are going to help you make it happen. It's pretty simple, and I know you can do it. Now, if you're wondering what else you can eat with diabetes to not spike your blood sugar, especially if you have a sweet tooth, don't forget to check out the link below for my free ebook, The Top 25 Low-Carb Dessert Recipes You Will Love. So if you like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up and subscribe so you never miss a new video. And comment below and tell me, did these tips help you? Are you seeing a difference in your blood sugar levels? I want to know, and I can't wait for you to join me next time.